Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Andrew Wilkow. Joining me now to discuss the work of his ministry across Nigeria and the freedom we celebrate in the United States on the 4th of July, Independence Day, versus other places around the world is the founder and CEO of Across Nigeria and former Salem radio host, Brandon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, it's good to be on with you.
Let's look at it like this. Without a deep faith in God, the United States would not exist. The revolution never would have happened. The men that fought and died to make this country what it is would not have done so without a deep belief in God and freedom. And freedom and God are enshrined in our Constitution. Do you look at other nations and say, if they had the faith that we had in the Almighty and in our freedoms coming from God, not government, that the world would be a better place?
Yeah, I really do. And you hit the nail on the head with that. Our founding fathers believed in natural rights and natural law. And what that means is that our rights come from God, not even from the Constitution. The Constitution protects our rights that are given to us by God, but ultimately our rights come to us from God. And in other countries, that's not the basis of their legal system. That's not the basis of their constitution. They believe, such as Nigeria, where I work, they believe that their rights come from the government. And so if the government gives them their rights, well, then the government can take those rights away. But if God gives us our rights, then nobody can take those away because they are given to us solely by our Creator. And that's what our founding fathers believed. And I think that's why our country has lasted and been a beacon of freedom throughout the world for as long as it has.
Well, minus parts of the modern Democratic Party, government in the United States is not threatened by faith, right? Where it seems like in other parts of the world, if the people are allowed to worship freely, that is a threat to the rule of government. So they don't let the people worship freely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's at the heart of the reason why what we just discussed is because if God gives us those rights, well, then nobody can take them away. However, if the government gives us those rights, then the government has to control us, and the government has to be able to step in and say, "Oh no, we don't like you to have those kind of rights or rights in that area of life." And so the government then needs to take control and step in and remove those rights and restrict those rights that we have. And so the government will often use religion or lack of religion to do so.
I'm not going to pretend I know the state of religion in Nigeria, but do the people have religious freedom?
I would say that they do in southern Nigeria, but Nigeria is divided into two parts, northern Nigeria and southern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria is predominantly Muslim, and 12 states in northern Nigeria are controlled by Sharia law. And under Sharia law, the rights of anybody who's not a Muslim are severely restricted. In fact, Christians are treated as second-class citizens at best in a lot of areas in northern Nigeria, to the point where they can't go to school, they can't get medical care. Sometimes I've even seen it to where they can't go to the market and buy food simply because they're Christians.
And that also extends to anyone. When you have political Islam or, whatever you want to call it, if you don't share their vision of Islam, you're also
That's
not,
right.
You're not free either.
Yeah, they even go after even go after Muslims, people who believe in the Islamic faith. But if they don't believe in their brand of the Islamic faith, or they're critical at all of their own faith, the radicalization of their own faith, we've heard of situations where people have been thrown in prison for 24 years. Muslims have been sentenced to 24 years in prison in northern Nigeria simply for posting a Facebook post that is critical of their own religion, and that's really happening. That's happening all the time in northern Nigeria.
See, that's one of the magical things about the United States. You think about all the different denominations of Christianity, and we have Muslims and Jews, and we have atheists, and we have Hindus and Buddhists and Sikhs, and the Constitution protects all of them to worship freely their way and in the public square while being protected by the rule of law. If that's not magic, I don't know what is.
Yeah, we should never be afraid of freedom. Freedom gives the people power. So unless you're trying to be a totalitarian or have absolute power, you shouldn't be afraid. But if you are trying to be a totalitarian government or you're trying to be a dictator, then you should fear freedom. And that's what we see all around the world. That's what I see in northern Nigeria, where I work, is that those who are afraid of freedom are the ones who are trying to consolidate power.
Do you ever fear for your own safety?
I fear for my own safety all the time. We work in areas that are controlled by the ISIS, which is also called ISWA in West Africa, and also Boko Haram. Boko Haram is responsible for killing about 50,000 people just probably in the last 14 years. And we travel in and out of those areas. I work in areas that are controlled by those groups.
You know, it's really sad when you see like warlords and the like. It's you can't have an economy, you can't have a thriving society if you don't have the rule of law at and the person with the most guns and the least humanity are running the show.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's happening in northern Nigeria. Is only the bad guys can have guns. The Firearms Act in Nigeria has restricted firearm ownership almost to the point of making it impossible. In fact, you have to go through about 2 years of applications and money and fees just to get a permit to carry a single shotgun. So only the bad guys in Nigeria can have handguns and AK-47s, and that's exactly what the bad guys want.
You know, for the left in this country that constantly tears the country down and thinks this is a terrible, awful place, they should only go spend 5 minutes in a place like Gaza or northern Nigeria or in Tehran and dye their hair pink and carry a pride flag and see what happens, right? We could disagree
They wouldn't last very long.
On social aspects, but really at the end of the day, this is the greatest country on earth. And the more I hear about the way life is in other countries, the more I am blessed to be an American on Independence Day. I'll give you the last 20 seconds.
To people who are critical of our country and don't like it and talk about moving, I say, where else are you going to go to find the freedoms and the security and the safety that we have here in the United States? Tell me one other place in this world that you're going to go to find an equivalent to the United States of America. I know it because I live it as I minister and work in northern Nigeria.
All right, Brandon, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right, more Wilkow after the break.